And we'd love to hear from you in the chat. If you're in one of these cold fronts like we are, what's it like where you are? Is it cold? Is it warmish? What's the weather like?
You baby cat.
Got a lot of folks who are in some cold weather right now in our group here. Nice. Cold here in Ottawa. We got someone who says it's cold where she is, but loves snow. Toronto's cold too. Carleton Place as well. Ooh, Saskatchewan, -20 today.
Wow.
Hannah, is -20 kind of normal for this time of year? Is that a bit warm? Saskatchewan can get pretty cold, eh? Maybe you could tell us in the chat for Saskatchewan what -20 is for you guys.
Marilyn is wrapped up.
Normal, yes. Cold snap just broke in Saskatchewan. Last week was -30. -20 tonight in Ottawa, -15 during the day. Oh, we got someone who was in Alberta and it's just returned to Ottawa. Feels like -48 Celsius during a nonstop cold snap there. Oof. Helps me feel a little warmer. Oh, Brampton going down to -20 tonight as well. That's pretty cold for Brampton, I think. It feels colder when it's really humid, I find. It's a different kind of cold than that dry cold. So the thermometer doesn't tell you everything. I was just up in the Yukon Territory, and I was there for a warm snap myself. And I was grateful because I came in after it was in the low -30s, and then now they've been having -40 as well.
Wow.
So, but it's a dry cold. It feels, you know, a -25 there feels a lot warmer than a -25 here in the Ottawa Valley where I am because of that humidity. Martina's got herself some tea. Yeah, that's the ticket.
Not just any tea, medicine tea.
Mm. Good stuff.
It's actually your stuff, Joanna.
Oh, nice. This is
yeah.
So how do you like it? This is tea that I grew in my garden.
Wow.
Yeah, it has the like black licorice kind of taste to it.
Anise.
It's actually really good. You know, with some honey in there.
Is it anise?
Yes.
Okay, wild plant?
So I grew it from seed.
Awesome. You got a healthy garden of it?
Yeah.
Okay, this raccoon's coming back to your place in August.
Oh, wonderful. Well, you don't need to. I could send it to you by mail.
Okay, well, that is something that used to grow here, but they did so much spraying.
Okay.
Maybe I shouldn't be talking about this right now, eh?
Okay. We'll talk, Marilyn, we'll talk.
Okay, well, they did so much spraying, you know, to defoliage, save money and all that stuff. So our beds are gone. And what is there now, we wouldn't harvest it because it's being impacted with chemical. But all the ceremonies that we know of, the good visiting after ceremony, there's a pot of that, a pot of tea over open fire, with cedar, a little bit of Labrador tea, and that on this. That makes good medicine. Good medicine pot.
Yeah.
Now you're making me jealous.
We'll get that sorted out soon, Marilyn.
Okay,
Joanna has an amazing organic farm, but I won't.
I know.
I won't go on about it.
Emily, I was there. I sized it up. My eyes just went, "How are you?" Just walking around. It was good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, everything's gone to bed now, but still
Mm.
got some tea. So looks like we've got a good number of folks here, and we may have a few more trickling in, but I'd like to give a warm welcome to everyone to the Thinking at the Intersection talk as part of the We Baba Mose Mamiwi program. And yeah, just wanted to welcome you all, and have just a few housekeeping notes before we start with an opening from Marilyn. So today's talk will run for its usual 2 hours, and if you have a question during the talk, please feel free to post those questions in our Q&A. The chat will also be running and available, as you can see. And we'll be addressing as many questions as time allows. And if there's multiple questions asking very similar things, we may put those together if need be, in order to make sure that we can answer all questions. And we'll be recording the session, so anyone who's unable to participate in the full session will have access to it before their discussion talk. But we're really grateful if you can stay with us for the whole time. And yeah, I'll pass things over to Marilyn. Miigwech, everyone, and thank you, Marilyn.
I pick up the feather. Shamaro, Mishomas, Dokmasak, Winabajo, Miigwech. Na bish quadish na Kosamak Cardo Dem, Shwana Gadunjaba, Manado, Gummy. I was given that name, Water, when I was a very small girl. And my territory and land people are Shawanaga First Nation in Ontario. And I live on the Great Lakes, so I always acknowledge the spirit of those waters. This gathering of family and friends this evening, the spirits were actually preparing us 4 days ago, Friday. So we're going to be talking about many relationships and understandings this evening, because that's what they've shown us to do. So on Friday, just before Mishomas Jesus went walking to the western door, there was a gift in the sky world that acted like a shawl, both sides, east and west. Now, what that shawl represented were what we call sundogs. And it's a language of the governance of the sky and the universe. Those sundogs look like rainbows, vertical rainbows on either side of the Mishomas Jesus. Beautiful, short. But what they talk about is weather. And that's exactly what we've been experiencing. And your comments telling us where you come from and how cold it is and how windy and everything. Squagmakwa, Earth Woman, needs these gifts Snowden came and breathed on the waters to help that water woman put her babies to rest under the ices. And Snowman came and covered the ice so that they could sleep. These are sacred language gifts, sacred relationships. They prepared us for what we have to share with one another. I'm asking you not to be shy. Listen. And the most important thing is that we have one of the greatest Mishomises that I know in my lifetime. That is Mishomis Albert. And the knowledge that he carries as he walks this earth comes from that eastern door. And we are at his feet tonight, sitting on the ground, just like it would have been a long time ago, sitting in circle with the elders. Some had seats, some sat on the ground to listen. And that's what we're going to do tonight with great pleasure. Oh, miigwech, miigwech, miigwech. Oh. Okay, passing the feather.
Which Marilyn, maybe I could share a little bit about you, Albert, to the group, because not everyone has had the pleasure of meeting you before. So everyone, I'd like to welcome Albert Marshall. Elder Albert Marshall is a highly respected and much loved elder of the Mi'kmaq Nation. He lives in Eskasoni First Nation in Unama'ki, or Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, and is a passionate advocate of cross-cultural understandings and healing, and of our human responsibilities to care for all creatures and our Earth Mother. He is the designated voice with respect to environmental issues for the Mi'kmaq elders of Unama'ki, and he sits on various committees that develop and guide collaborative initiatives and understandings in natural resource management, or that serve First Nations governance issues, or that otherwise work towards ethical, environmental, social, and economic practices. Albert Marshall and his late wife, Murdena, coined the phrase two-eyed seeing as a guiding principle for collaborative work, which encourages learning to see from one eye with the strengths of Indigenous knowledge and ways of knowing, and from the other eye with the strength of Western knowledge and ways of knowing, and learning to use both these eyes together for the benefit of all. So without further ado, I'll pass things over to you, Albert, and I really look forward to our conversation this evening.
Thank you very much. But first of all, I'd like to thank Marilyn for the opening of grounding us. Because I believe through her beautiful way of articulating it, it reminds us that how in modern societies we have become so disconnected from our natural world, in which we have allowed others to compromise the very essence of life in which we all depend upon, and using our silences and our denials. But for some reason, that energy now is in the process of revitalization. All our brothers and sisters across this Turtle Island are now beginning to speak up and they begin to share the knowledges and the wisdoms that they have been left for them from their ancestors and from their elders. Because I believe this is something that's going to be required to provide every available opportunity for our Earth Mother to begin this process of healing. Because she does need a lot of healing, and the rate in which the extraction has been allowed to continue, and the ever increase of injection of these toxins into water, air, and soil. So again, I like to say big wish to Marlon for grounding us into this. Who I seen, I believe, is something in which I truly believe that is very much inherent to an Aboriginal ways of thinking. Because in my humble opinion, our languages comes from the Creator. And anything that comes from the Creator not only has a purpose, but it's also sacred. So now we're called upon today to use our languages, and to use our languages and our ways to bring people back together, in which our overarching objective from here on in will be one of which to be using the gifts that the Creator has given us for the benefit of all. And for myself, that concept of benefit for all implies not just for humanity, but every living thing out there in which we are solely dependent upon. So every action that we take in always has to be in harmony with nature. That should be our overarching objective from here on in, to ensure that no one will ever create a negative reaction that will compromise others for their source of life. And also for us again to become grounded, and we are just a very small part and very small part and parcel of this wonderful creation. But unlike any other creature, we have something in which they don't have. And that's what we now call a cognitive mind. Granted, in some cases, when we reflect backwards, the knowledge that flowed from this cognitive mind, most cases was used to compromise the ecological integrity of our areas and compromise the cleansing capacity of our area, of our waters, air, and so on. But we need science. But that science has to be also be engaging, ensuring that any action that comes from this knowledge will also have to be in harmony. And if not, at least use this knowledge even when we do something that is not productive or effective. At least we can use this energy to begin to mitigate some of our actions, so that our very source of life, our Earth Mother, will not be impacted by our actions. To I seen again, to me, I say it's something in which anyone that's engaging their minds into sense of curiosity are always engaged into that because you're always searching for concepts, for actions, as to how could I improve my actions or my phrases so that the outcome will always be centered for the benefit of all. Because unless we spend some time and energy of ensuring that our source of life is going to be our number one priority, and that this source of life is something in which all life form needs. Many years ago, of course, it became apparent that rather than just refer to it as another perspective, I think it was expedient at the time to find a catchphrase that would capture the essence of it. So we used two eye seeing because all of us have two eyes. And for those of us that are from Aboriginal understanding, we see everything from our Aboriginal lens. And in that lens, there's everything in it in which it will help us and guide us and direct us to the direction in which we need to go. Because not only we're going to set forth and center all our actions just for this generation here. That's a very small part and parcel of it. But rather always look forward into setting the next 7 generations. And in our simple calculation, we learned that 120 years is a reasonable length of time in which we can have an idea or a thought in the form of discussion. With 120 years, of course, times 7, it's a long time from the human scale. But when you compare it with our Earth, it's only a blink of an eye. So by setting your objectives that far in the future, allows that knowledge to keep evolving. But one of the greatest beauties of life, of course, is that we all have been given these gifts. But sometimes those gifts we can't use on a daily basis, especially when you're young. But those gifts are stored, and you are allowed to develop and to learn things that you will need so that you can sustain yourself. And when all those things are done, and when you have been gifted to be able to be around for an extended period of time, then of course you are called upon to use those gifts and knowledges that you have been given to you, and for you to use those for the benefit of all. So two-eye seeing then is something just like a jigsaw puzzle. With one perspective, it might not mean much. But if we were to put all our perspectives together, well, now we have a complete picture. A picture what has to be done, what needs to be done, and how to keep that going. So our efforts here during our short stay here will give the necessary groundwork for the future generations to carry on. And this is where I believe it's so important when young people take some time and listen to the old people to learn, so that when their day comes, they can just carry on what they have been given. Granted, we need the mainstream knowledge, because no way can we go back to where we were, in which we can become hunters and gatherers again. We now have to live into another form of an economy, the wage economy, in which technology is going to become a critical component to that. But at the same time, if you had an opportunity to be grounded of who you are, then you can use that to reinforce the knowledge you have. So not only you will be able to sustain yourself and your families and your community, but also you'll also be able to now begin to apply those gifts that have been given to you, and put those knowledges together, so that we can all come together as one as to how we're going to go about making sure that every action that we take always has to be in harmony with nature, because it's something that we all solely depend upon. Without clean air, fertile soil, and clean drinking water, none of those technological stuff will matter. So 2IC, and again, I believe, is something that should be a fundamental principle of how we go through life, by embracing and by nurturing the gifts, not only the gifts that we have been given, but the knowledges that you will acquire along the way from your communities, from your parents, from your grandparents, from your ancestors. And this is how, to me, knowledge evolves. And in order for us to ensure that knowledge will continuously evolve like it was intended for it to be, is to open our hearts and minds and always listen. Listen. And once you hear something, then you're going to try to apply it in your own life, not just to enrich that very moment, but also you will be carrying the torch that each generation is passed on to. Because one day, you will be in the same position as we are. And I know that the energy that the young people have today is so powerful, because they have been gifted something in which we never had. And that's the energy of technology. And if we can integrate that technology along with the wisdoms from our communities and from our cultures and from our languages, it will certainly enrich us to carry on and to pass on whatever knowledges that have been passed on to us. And those knowledges will then keep going, because to my understanding, knowledge is alive. It's physical and it's spiritual. And every word we utter, every action we take, we leave energy out there. And for that energy will not only benefit individually or collectively, but also will benefit the oncoming generations. Because again, try to remember that knowledge is alive. And let's not get trapped into the situation in which most people are, that with so much knowledge out there now, are we not in fact drowning in that knowledge, but yet starving in wisdom? That is the wisdom that's gonna sustain us, sustain our families, our communities, and our nations. We now have so much responsibility. We have been silent. We have been forced to be silent for many years. But now the time has come in which we have to speak up and share the knowledges that have been given, and be very determined that encouraging people to look upon what kind of a transformative change we need. And once we identify that mission, then I believe we will be all ready and prepared, young and old, all people, to come together and start crafting this the kind of a paradigm shift that will be needed, that will be in harmony and in balance with nature. This is something I think that has been missing. A lot of people have felt how far they have been disconnected from nature. I believe now the appetite is here now, they're just waiting. And all the answers are now in the minds and the hands of Aboriginal people, because we have been here for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And when we do some reflection, we wonder, it's a wonder how our people have managed to survive, to coexist in this complex system of nature without any point to actually compromise the ecological integrity of the area or compromise the cleansing capacity of the system. So there are so many lessons in that, but the onus is on us now to extract those lessons and apply them so that the kind of a paradigm shift we will need will be one in which our Earth Mother would not only be pleased, but she would also be able to begin the process of healing, because the rate of extraction so far and the rate of injection of these toxins, she could not heal herself. So let's come together and make sure that every action or actions of others will always be in which it was intended. So that not only we individually will benefit, but also benefit for all. Again, I like that word benefit for all, because it implies for every living thing out here that needs our input, that needs our efforts. And we are the only ones that have something that they don't have, and that's the cognitive mind. The wonders of 2i Seeing, of course, is that you don't have to keep repeating it. It's just a matter of centering your mind that your actions will always be not just in harmony, but also enriching, empowering. Because the more we empower, the more enrich, the more we are fulfilling our inherent responsibilities. And that is that every action that will be taken from here on in will be something in which benefit of all will benefit from it. Because the reason I use words like we have been disassociated or disconnected from nature. We have allowed ourselves to get caught into that mindset for a while. Of course, there wasn't many opportunities anyway for us to be heard. But who I seen, I think, to me, has to be very much a guiding principle of not only how we go through life, but also importantly, what kind of a legacy will we be leaving, for not only for the uncommon generation, but also for the future generation. So that should be our overarching objective. Yes, we can sustain ourselves, but the benefits not only going to benefit us, but to ensure that the benefits also be there for the future generation. Now, I would like very much, because this should not be just a one person talking, because I have to admit, I only know a very small part and parcel of life. And in order to capture the essence of us, we all have to be given the opportunity of sharing, of voicing not just our opinion, but also sharing the gifts that each and every one of us have been given. I know that sometimes it's rather difficult, because the knowledge that I have fits well into the environment in which I'm in. And we know the diversity of nature. So the more we engage in ourselves from across this turtle island, I believe the better chance we will have of not just supporting each other, learning from each other, but also use the efforts so that every effort that we do, no matter where we might be in this geographical area, the benefit will be always for the future generation. I would welcome reflections, opinions, questions, because again, just like what the 2I Scene implies, it's in the spirit of co-learning, learning from each other. It's a spirit of collaboration, working together, learning together. And this is, I believe, then we will be fulfilling our inherent responsibility.
Albert, it looks like we do have a question from Allison Drake.
Okay.
And she says, "Thank you, Albert, for your wisdom. I'm wondering, how can two-eyed seeing guide relationships between settlers and Indigenous peoples on environmental issues?
Well, in my humble opinion, the first thing that has to be done, if we're going to use the word relationship, is for us to engage ourselves of exchanging our stories. Because it's through this exchange of stories that not only we will know of who we are, where we come from, and why we are here, but we will also be able to learn from each other the gifts that we all have been given. That one never knows of realizing that, it's impossible for I to know everything. I need other people's opinion, other people's suggestions, other people's ways of knowing, not just to enrich, but to give me a better edge of providing or exercising the gifts and the knowledge that I learned from others, and to apply those gifts in my geographical area to give me much more, so that I can become much more effective of exercising my inherent responsibility, because nature is such a complex system. It's going to require as many perspectives as we can possibly get to give us the edge, so that the work that we're doing will benefit all.
This program that we are that your talk is a part of is focused on unethical space, and I'm curious about how you see ethical space as a way that might contribute towards two-eyed seeing.
Well, first of all, excuse me. When I hear that word, ethical space, it implies to me that we are putting the best, everything that we have into this special place, in which whatever is going to accumulate there, it's going to be something in which all of us at any given point can always go back to it and extract what we would need, because this ethical space would be a central point in which all these wonderful knowledges that we all have, and we put them into this sacred place, and for that to be used for anyone at any point they feel they lack something, they lack information, they lack something, they can always go into this sacred place again and extract what they would need, so that they'll be able to carry on the work that they are doing. But this ethical space, in my humble opinion, it's going to be a reflection from all of us across the Turtle Island, in which we have taken upon ourselves are putting the best that we have into that, so others can benefit from it.
Thank you. I see we have a question from Alexandra. She says, as a younger generation, what are some things we can do to be more connected with nature?
Well, again, in my humble opinion, we have been so much disconnected from nature with the kind of an education system that we are being subjected to. And I think for us to make that reconnection again, we have to somehow amplify our voices, not only to the education system, but especially to the education system, that in order for us to reconnect again, we want to be in nature again, not just experience it, but also try to get as much information, because science is going to become play a critical role into this now. I don't know if you remember, Marlon mentioned there at our initial discussions there, that now people are beginning to be cognizant of the fact that some of these toxins now have infiltrated some of these medicinal plants or sacred plants. So again, science is going to become a major factor of guiding us and directing us as to how can we, if somehow we realize that these plants or whatever has been contaminated, we should then be able to use this Western science to mitigate that. So these plants would also be given the opportunity to begin the process of healing, because they too have to be healed, because they are alive. And if they are sick, well, the onus should be upon us of providing that helping hand if and when it is needed. And I think this is one major area I believe, we can make that transition much easier by realizing that nature is alive. Nature has rights. Humans have responsibilities. Because everything that we do unto her, we do it unto ourselves. And if we do, then we should be able to mitigate it, help it to recover, help it to heal, so that they can do the gifts that they have been given to do, and that's to make everyone well, not just humans, but for other living things.
I see we have a question from an anonymous attendee, it says. So one of our participants is asking, has Western science always been completely compatible with Indigenous teachings? And a second part to it is, if not, how was the conflict resolved?
Well, I have to say at this juncture that Western science wasn't always incompatible with nature, even though it was intended for it to be. But we must realize for a long period of time, this knowledge has been used more or less in a wrong way. And if we look at our current state of our environment, we can quickly see and realize, because of this knowledge or energy called science, has it not been used just an arm of destruction? And it's the onus is on us now of using that energy to begin to mitigate and to be the helping hand rather than the arm of destruction. Because science has such a powerful energy, and it was given to us to assist us and to help us to be able to understand it. That if it causes harm, it would also, we should also again transform it to be the harm of healing, not just the harm of destruction. Science is a wonderful knowledge we have. Let's make sure that it's going to be used for right reasons.
Wonderful. So far, those are the questions that have been asked at this point, and I'm wondering, Albert, do you think this would be a good point for us to take a break and then come back? Or how would you like to?
Well, yeah, that's a wonderful suggestion. Because I cannot speak for everybody else, and I believe that that's a wonderful suggestion, especially us old folks.
Sure. So what if we were to take 15 minutes, say, and come back? I'm looking, I know we're all in different time zones, but 15 minutes for me would be 8:08.
10 after here. Well, I got 5 to 9 here.
Sounds good.
So 10 after or what?
Perfect, 10 after.
All right.
10
Then.
after whatever it is where you are.
Thank you.
Rich, thank you. We'll see everyone shortly. Here we go. So yeah, so Chloe Dragon Smith, who you know, she was hoping to join us tonight, but had to send her regrets at the very last minute. And I know she was really looking forward to being with us. And Chloe was involved in some of the Pathways to Target 1 process, which was created to follow through on international commitments that Canada made to protect nature, to protect lands and water. And, you know, there's also been a reconciliation through conservation initiative that has followed that process after it wrapped up. And yeah, so Chloe, when we have her in for the next webinar, if we can manage, we'll speak to that in more detail, and Larry can do so as well. But I'm curious, Albert, you yourself, you know, you're involved in the reconciliation through conservation initiative work, and I'm curious about your perspective on how 2-eyed seeing is applied to that type of work.
Well, I believe 2-eyed seeing, I think, you know, you should give a prerogative. That this concept, you know, is not meant to be fit all in, you know, one size fits all sort of thing. It just encourages people to use their own perspectives. How to enrich something. How they can transform it so that they can become just as much of an effective, be just as effective on this initiative as everyone else, especially the young people, because you see, for example, now, I'm sure you have heard the recent government announcement about the language. They're now going to set aside 2022 again as an international year of the Aboriginal language. I would be very interested in hearing the young people of what they think about it. You know, what input can they have, and what would they be sort of issues that they would be interested in, and what aspect of the language, you know what I mean, could help them. Now, I know this is only a recent announcement, but I think it should also be something in which we can use to motivate us to begin to include more and more of our Aboriginal languages in whatever we are doing. Because this is how it's going to reflect of who we are.
Absolutely. You know, before we went live with the webinar, you were sharing a little bit with us about what you can learn from language, and you even gave an example. Yeah, I was wondering if you might be interested in sharing a bit of that with the participants now that they're here.
Yeah, you know, to what I see, you know, it's such a. I would even go as far as to say it has to be an overarching objective for all of us, of always looking at something from another perspective, so that we will then be given the opportunity or a chance to include or integrate our understanding, our perspectives into it, so that whenever there's a need for us to come together, you know, we'll always be on one page here, you know, that each and every one of us will be coming to the table with our perspectives, but those perspectives would, I believe, would enrich the overall objective. Because the point I'm trying to make is that it's impossible for one individual to craft something that could resonate across the country. No, it's just that we add our little ways of knowing into it to enrich it, give it a much more wider perspective, so that when we not only understand it, but we can also be very comfortable of having our voices included, our ways are included, and so on. You know, because the task before us has to be based on collective, because we're trying to work with nature, and we know nature is such a complex system. And the more complex system issues we bring forth, would it not give us a better age or a better chance of being much more effective? Right, you know, as opposed to being just, you know, one few voices or one individual voice. That's the way I see it. That's the issue on hand, or whatever this new narrative would look like. It has to be crafted by all of us, by each individually bringing our little pieces into it, to make it much more profound and much more meaningful and powerful.
Absolutely. And if there are any participants out there who would like to share their thoughts on this new year of Indigenous language, or anything else related to what's being shared tonight, please feel free to add that in the chat.
I would like very much if we can, maybe not now, but somewhere, sometimes, you know, in the near future, if you can get them to do some reflection as to what their ideas are, what their opinions would be, you know what I mean? Because their opinions are important, in which it's going to reinforce or enrich the knowledge that's going to be put forth. Because I mean, I'm not saying our knowledge is obsolete, no. But you know, the knowledge that serves us was only for that moment in time. And we know that nature is not static. It's always in motion. We will be able to add our pieces to, you know, for the younger generations to use to help them along in their understanding, in what they are seeing and what they are envisioning. That they're the ones that are going to be doing it anyway. So why not do it right at the initial stage, like now? Because at least I'm comfortable in saying, from an Aboriginal perspective, that the young people are always part and parcel of any major discussion that will be ongoing. But sadly, the education system did not allow that. But I think now we have a prerogative to do that, because we are now being not just reckoned with, but at least now we have been invited more and more to be part of this discussion and to add our perspectives into it, which is, you know, which is really very refreshing. I mean, look what has happened within the last decade here, for example. How far our Aboriginal languages or cultures have been brought on and demanded. And English now, you know, I mean, English, yes, English is a working language for all of us, yes. And for those of us that have not been educated in the mainstream education system, we desperately need those young people, because they're the ones that are well grounded in that concept of English language. They can master it, and they can articulate it in a way in which they will integrate our ways of knowing, our ways of being into their persons. But this notion of 7 generations, there's no set year for it. It's just that each generation has that responsibility of sharing whatever they have for the oncoming generation, to give them a better opportunity in a better age, to be able to understand it, of just where we come from. So they will know exactly where they're going.
Martina had put a question in the chat before we left for break, and we have a couple more in our Q&A section as well. Joanne, I don't know if we want to do any of those. Martina's question was for Albert. do you have any lived experiences you'd like to share of two-eyed seeing in your own life?
Well, that is really somewhat a challenging question, because you see, when you're embedded into this concept of looking at everything from another perspective, in which you have the liberty to embrace any knowledge that you will need to prepare you to meet whatever challenges that you are facing. But again, just to reiterate, up to now, there wasn't too many allowances being made of integrating or including Aboriginal ways, or Aboriginal way of being into this modern context. But now there is, and I believe the onus should be on us at this juncture to embrace that and take every available opportunity. But more especially, so the young people then will have a much more in-depth understanding of who they are, where they come from, and why they are here. Because they will be able to be well grounded of their own perspectives, based on their languages and cultures and customs and so on. And I think that's something that we should enrich all of us, because education system, as wonderful as it is, I believe it was exclusively designed only to teach us what they want us to learn, and didn't make any allowances for us to bring forth some of the lessons that we have experienced, that we have lived on, and apply those lessons learned to kind of give us a better understanding of where we're going and why, and to figure out why we are here. So yes, there are a lot of wonderful examples. Like, for example, here in Cape Breton, when we first developed that course called Integrative Science Program, initially there wasn't that many. As a matter of fact, there was no Mi'kmaq students going to any of these science programs, especially in biology. And then through the help and assistance of this lady, Dr. Cheryl Bartlett, and at that point, of course, my late wife was a professor at CBU. They took that as a task, if it would be possible to actually integrate or to put these two knowledges together and see what the outcome would be. And even though the numbers were low, but each and every one of those graduates are doing that today, of using that as a guide to help them to be able to help out areas that have been somewhat compromised, especially the lake here, that is big lake here in Nunamagi called the Bador Lake. Bador Lakes, of course, has been a sort of a lifeline, not just for our people, but for people that came by later. And it sustained people, but because of the land use activities, it actually brought the lake down to, down to its knees, in which not all the species are here now. The waters have been somewhat compromised. The habitats have been compromised. Now they're using the two ways of knowing to help out nature so that you can begin to regenerate. You can begin to heal yourself, you know, and of course, with traditional knowledges, sometimes we commit ourselves into action that we may never see the end, we never see the benefit of it. But still and all you do it because nature has its own course in which they take. And it's not up to the person to determine, you know, how was my effort? How was my effort played out into this? No. Because it will take time before that individual action could have a major impact on the whole system. And the only way that's going to make it effective would be, you know, the more perspectives, the more efforts we put in collectively, and we're creating a better opportunity for nature to regenerate herself and to heal herself. So success is something in which I don't think it really has to be in one's mind when you're dealing with nature. Do everything that you can from your heart with love and compassion as an overarching objective. And that itself, I think, you know, and the only consolation into that is that you have exercised your inherent responsibility. Do everything you can to ensure that your actions are going to be positive to the overall source of life, which not only we depend upon, but also the future generations will depend, and all life form will depend upon.
Now, it's come to my attention that it is actually possible, if there are any participants who want to raise their hand and ask a question personally, we can enable that for you. And we do have 2 questions that are in the Q&A here. I'm going to start with Kathleen Godfrey's question, unless Kathleen, you want to ask it yourself by raising your hand. Oh, we've got a raised hand from Kathleen. Wonderful. Maybe Emily, you can help me.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Lovely. Yeah, I hope maybe this is nicer for you, Albert. Where did my question go? Oh yeah, there it is. So Wilal and Albert, for your teaching so far tonight. It's been lovely to listen to you. As you're talking, it's sounding more and more like two-eyed seeing, and I did look up the Mi'kmaq translation, but I don't know how to pronounce it. But it might require like a healthy dose of humility and empathy, because you're talking about sort of different perspectives and like inhabiting those and bringing those into your sort of everyday thinking. So I'm kind of wondering what some of your favorite strategies are to sort of flex your humility and empathy muscles. Because sometimes that actually might be like hard for some people to do, to sort of think outside of their maybe mainstream culture, I guess.
Well, the simple word like benefit of all. But empathy, I think, is crucial, because in my language, we say, when Fajide, in which you put love and compassion, and you yourself humble yourself just to be a conduit or a connection to that knowledge, with the understanding that, of course, that my understanding or my perspective would only have a small role into whatever action that's going to be overall is required. Because when I humble myself, I have to admit I only know this much. I only know this small amount of what my Mi'kmaq traditional knowledge is all about. And for anyone to get the full benefit of it, has to be given the opportunity of hearing those bits and pieces of how we individually we are offering them. And once you put all those little pieces together, you're not only getting a full picture, but you also know that this will benefit the source of life in which we all depend upon, because every little bit of love and compassion we apply, it resonates to something that is alive, like nature, which is physical and spiritual. So again, those two words I think are more or less geared individually rather than collectively, because we're humble. We allow our hearts to do the talking, not our heads. And when we allow our hearts to do the talking, then of course everything that flows from that would be holistically appreciated, because our overall objective is how do we become holistic by being always willing to share what you have and put those all those little bits and pieces into this one area, and this area will be able to use those little gifts or little bits of knowledges to bring them back to balance, if it's a balance that we're concerned with, or if it's a responsibility that we're talking about, or sharing. Because in my simple way of thinking, it's impossible for I to know everything. That's why as time went on, it became incumbent upon us to include another concept like co-learning, always learning from each other. Because through this learning from each other will empower us, will gives us a better understanding of what is going to be required to do the work that's going to be before us. And for that effort to be effective, all these little bits and pieces have to be part and parcel of it. Because nature is such a complex system. It is pretty difficult for one individual to say this is the key point now I want to know. This is just going to be a very small part and parcel of it. But once all these bits and pieces, just like the jigsaw puzzle, one piece alone, it's pretty hard to conceptualize what this picture would look like. But once all these pieces are together, then up comes out this beautiful image of something. And to me, I believe this is really the essence of little gifts that we have. And we hope that these little gifts will come together to ultimately make a difference.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
We have a question here from Heidi Wu. And unless I see Heidi's hand go up, I'll ask it. So Heidi has asked, how and in what contexts should settlers ethically promote two-eyed seeing?
Well, I believe it would be very, very beneficial and effective. Because when we talk about two-eye seeing from my Aboriginal perspective, I base that on the knowledge of the past. And when I begin to reflect on that, I'm amazed. Here we had this group of people across this hemisphere, or Turtle Island, that have managed to coexist with this complex system of nature without them ever compromising the ecological integrity of the earth. And if they can do that, shouldn't there be some lessons learned in which we can bring those to the present to help us and to guide us of how of what we must do in the future, of ensuring that individually or collectively, that we would all be sort of doing the same thing. And that same thing, of course, is whatever gifts that we have, whatever knowledges that we have accumulated through our lifetime, to be used so that it will be the helping hand in which this system really needs. Because that's why I believe we were given something that no other creature has, and that's the cognitive mind. Now, you take any other being out there, they only are to do one or two things. But humans have been given something extra, and that extra is the mind. And for that mind to be used for the ones that need it. Because through this great mind of ours, we can transform a lot of things, good or bad.
Thank you. It looks like those are all of the questions that have been asked so far, but we do encourage participants, if there are any other questions while we have a few minutes left, you're very welcome to put something in the chat or to raise your hand directly.
And I believe through this reflection, I should give them ample time to commit their concept into a written format, because it's imperative really that we hear from everyone, no matter how small it may be. Remember, we're doing a jigsaw puzzle here, and those little pieces will create a kind of an image that we are proposing, or an action that we are proposing. Because every little action is going to have a profound effect if we put it all together.
Yeah, comments and thoughts are welcome as well. I see we've got Martinez has said, Chimiquich, Albert, your words have been very meaningful. And we have a question from Valerie Garcia. She says, to build from that question, what would you recommend as the first step to sharing two-eyed seeing with Western trained scientists?
Well, the first area that I would really approach would be is to try to educate Western science not to look upon nature as an object, but rather from an Aboriginal perspective as a subject, something that is alive, physically and spiritually. I think that's something in which I believe science could really benefit, because that would then, I believe, open up the opportunities for all of us, not just the Aboriginal people, for all of us that are here now, to be able to use those perspectives or those actions of the past to kind of help us to navigate into the future, because we need those lessons learned to guide us to the direction that we need to go. But without those lessons learned, and I believe it's going to be very difficult then for anyone to become over anxiously be innovative and experimenting. Because it's through these efforts of innovation, experimenting, you're always trying to improve the action of yours to be much more effective, rather than allow it to become stagnant. And we must also be very patient and keep creating an opportunity for us to use something that has helped our ancestors to coexist in this complex system, by always exercising and practicing their ceremonies. Because it's through those ceremonies that kept us grounded of who we are and why we are here, and what our responsibilities are. And it's a constant reminder how much everything is everything that's on earth, both physical and spiritual. And if we can somehow embrace that concept, I'm sure how we treat nature from here on in will be quite different than what it is now. In which, when you look at nature as an object, then it doesn't affect you, because you're not considering that part and parcel of your relationship. That we're all related. And that's why we have in our language, we have words like Amsudnogoma, which is gently reminder how much we are interconnected and interdependent with nature and with everyone. And if we can somehow bring that back, would you not agree how enriched our efforts would be from here on in, that everyone we sort of centered on this idea or notion that, you know, if we all exercise our inherent responsibilities, whatever they may be, then I think, you know, not only we can rest assured that we will survive, but also, more importantly, that the future generations will not only survive, but hopefully, through our collective effort, they will have a better opportunity than the ones we had. And they, in turn, will take that upon themselves when their time comes, of passing that on to their oncoming generation. And I think this is something that would really be very pleasing to our Earth Mother and to our Creator. So I cannot emphasize enough of make any effort that we can, always use our ceremonies. And no matter whatever we are doing. But we need that reminder just how much we are interconnecting, interdependent with every living thing. And when once we lose that connection, look at the state in which we're in now. That if we're not careful, this point of no return concept will become a reality. Because you could only take so much abuse before she could no longer sustain us. Western science is a wonderful knowledge. And it was given to us for that purpose. Let's make sure then that it's always going to be used in the right way. Not allow others to only transform it to be just the arm of destruction or the arm of benefit just for a select few. But for every living thing would benefit from that wonderful knowledge of science. The science has always been here.
Walalan, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, yeah, and I would say Leo, more than one. Thank you for listening. Thanking me for giving me the opportunity to be part of your circle tonight. It has been very enriching for me.
Us as well. I know I can speak for everyone when I say that. Is there anything that you would like to add before we move to close?
Well, no, other than the fact that, you know, there's a lot of work ahead of us yet. And the only way that we're going to be effective on it is if we do it together. Because she needs us. She needs our effort now. She needs our knowledge. She needs our gifts. Because if we don't, if she doesn't get them, we don't know what will happen. Again, we have to make sure that our efforts now are going to also have a greater benefit for the future generation. That should be our overall objective from here on in, making sure that do everything in our power of preparing this generation to carry on, using the knowledges of the past to help them guide them so that they can meet whatever challenges that they will be facing. And I encourage the young people to speak up, share your ideas, and never be afraid. Even though we realize that, you know, years ago it was done that during the beginning of the winter equinox, when the young people were given the floor to speak. And once they were recognized of identifying their aptitude or their gifts, then the nurturing would begin by the knowledge holders to prepare them of carrying on. So, but it was important as well too, because some people are a little shy, is to identify the leaders or the mentors, so they can then teach or they can mentor the mentors That there's such a thing as a generation gap too in our culture. Young people sometimes are somewhat reluctant of asking these vital questions because they feel it might not be not inappropriate, but they want to take some time. They want to take that time away from the knowledge holders. But once the mentors are identified, they are comfortable of weaving back and forth between these two knowledge bases, and they can converse with their own peers in a different way than between a knowledge holder and to their peers. So I know and I believe it is happening. We just have to expand those opportunities for them.
I see that, Emily, you've popped up your video. I'm wondering if there's anything you're wanting to add before we move to close.
Yeah, well, I was going to just mention one quick thing to everyone. If we are all finished, and I figured we were all kind of popping back up for the ending part here. Well, I just wanted to let all the participants know to just watch out for some information from us that will be coming soon about the packages you will be receiving to do our sweetgrass braiding workshop. Martina's raising the roof. Yeah, so we will be sending you some information just to make sure that we have your addresses confirmed and that we'll be sending your sweetgrass to the right place. Yeah, we're very excited about it. That's all.
Great. And the date is soon to be confirmed, but we're getting everything in line for that. Wonderful. All right. Well, Lalin, Albert, and Emily.
Lalin, thank you. Thank you, Albert.
Thank you.
And may I pass the feather over to you, Marilyn? Oh, but if we could get you to unmute.
Yes, my grandkids are not nearby, so thank you, Joanna. I'm picking up the feather. I'm so happy that the spirits came to wake us up, get us ready 4 days ago. And if we were sitting in circle with one another, it would take that long to prepare, to get ready. I say miigwech to our men and those that carry the knowledge of the fire bundles. I give thanks that you're allowing us to pass through your ethical space, the sky world. Our voices carry through that air right now. And I'm sure that the star people have listened and heard the knowledge that transpired between the elders and our next young elders. You are in process in your life walk to become aged as well. So I give thanks for the ethical space. There are so many ways to define language and the governance of how Creator gifted this world to work is one of them. And there are many markings within the fish, the winged ones, the plants, the animals that we should never forget. In addition, those knowledge beings are also written in the sky world, and I call them the petroglyphs, or the pictographs of knowledge that sit there. And in great celebration through December, with that Chimanado Jesus, great spirit moon that came. We are 3 weeks into that process. And next week will mark the new moon. Manados Jesus, little spirit moon. And I believe that this moon, although there is nothing formal about what moon starts the year, but I believe that this is the first moon of the year. And the reasons for that is that all the work that grandmother has done with all the helpers, Chinoden, Squida, Nibi, Nishkika, has put the ones that need to go to Vision Quest with grandmother, the turtle, the keeper of the calendar time, Mukwa, the bear, responsibility of taking care of Nishkaka, all the medicines, and the fish that live under that ice woman, and beginning to come from the depths to the shores to get ready for that new life in a very short time. That is a language in itself. The ones that have gone to hibernate, they were renewing their responsibility, their purpose, their language. You think about those little birds, tiniest ones sing the loudest songs. They don't know anything else. They've never been interrupted in those songs. They didn't go bebop or anything else. It's always been the same. We identify them for how they talk. And some of them, the small ones, even have 2 songs. That's just amazing, this gift. So I'm ready to put the feather to sleep for tonight. But I want to thank each and every one of you young people. In my older years, I call you the teachers. And what you give us as elders, I hope is just as equal, that we give back, that we reciprocate back, something that you can use in your life bundle. If we were a gathering, this would be day 1 of a long, long journey. And you never get tired of it. So with that, I will close by saying this is simply Nishin Nishkika. What that means is good medicine, so good night. And miigwech to all the spirit people that came You look after us. Say miigwech, ahal, chi miigwech. Mompi.
Tomopi.
Which,
Uh,
Bumam-
Tomoki.
Rothman,
Mm.